Can you tell me a bit more about the National Screen Institute's New Voices program that you manage?
The program itself is, for the first 2 weeks, it's spiritual boot camp. They're taken out to the land. We make offerings. They're taught about history, Aboriginal history in particular, and why we are playing catch up as storytellers. What has happened to us in the last 150 to 500 years that has caused us to carry the mentality that we are victims. So it's a spiritual boot camp in the way where we take them back to the land and their spirits are reignited. And we teach them about what has happened and how to move forward from that point so that we can expedite their training and honoring their gifts. Some of them come in with the concept of wanting to become a director. Well, there are many stages to get to that place. So how do you hone in on that strategy and your path? So the only way to do that is to really ask your spirit what your spirit wants to do. Because so many of us in this industry do things that we don't really want to do. And I think if we can do what our spirit is telling us that we should do, I think the journey is smoother, the transition is smoother, and we're happier doing it. And as a result, we're going to stay committed and focused to doing it. And so I find that giving them that strategy right from the onset, when, the minute that they enroll, and day one is in ceremony, learning about natural law, learning about what makes your spirit happy. And for the most part, most First Nations people migrate, it's a migration process that happens everywhere, where we go from our reserve back to the city a couple times a year. Then we'll go back to our community, for ceremony season or to visit with relatives. But there's a migration that happens, and which is one of the reasons why Stats Canada has a difficult time kind of nailing down the population demographics, because of the migration that continues to happen year after year, season after season. And so for the students, what I teach them is how to fill that hunger in your spirit that wants to go home. How do you feed it for the interim so that it doesn't affect your training? How to go back to the land and ask, how do I feed that little hunger that's inside of me that pulls me back home and makes me feel lonely? Throughout the program, the elders sanction their journey. So elders are brought in through New Voices to let them know that you're on the right path. And that's huge for them, because once the elders have said, it's fine, we'll support you, they go, I haven't compromised anything. Because our biggest worry as a nation is, are we compromising something to reach this goal? What are we compromising next? What else is going to suffer for me to be happy? And that's the victim mentality. And so the first 2 weeks that they're in this training, this is what we do. And I also introduce it in a way where it's a family, so that there isn't one member of our family that gets left behind. If we know that one of our students is having personal problems, we all surround ourselves, and work with that person to say, are you all right? Is everything fine? Can I help you? And so even with the pitch process, when they're preparing for their pitches, we do the same thing. For example, right now I have maybe one student who is not 100% sure they could pitch. And so yesterday for 2 hours, we worked all together as a group with that one person to ensure that they can do their pitch properly and feel good about themselves. So with the natural law that's introduced, it's the 7 natural laws that all nations are guided by, but we tell them from a different perspective. So they're introduced to those laws right from the beginning, and throughout the entire time that they're training with us, we rely on those laws to help us get through our day, to help us get through our week and the 3 months that we're doing this. Because many times when we're on those sets working in our practicum placements, we're the only Indians in the group. So how do you become the teacher and really focus on what you need to do as an educator and a nurturer, as an Aboriginal person? So it's many levels, being the teacher, but also being, knowing your foundation and the spiritual knowledge that you need to get through this training program and get out there and make a difference in the community. I think history would be remembered differently if it had been told from our perspective.
And then just one more thing about the New Voices program. How does the actual layout of the training work?
So the 6 weeks that we are in the NSI training, I bring in industry folks that provide an overall understanding of all levels of the business, whether it's in the newsroom, whether it's radio, or whether it's film and television. And so each of the students has their own idea, as to what they want to get out of it. So I'll bring in different industry players that I've worked with, and I know that Aboriginal people would feel, the guard would be down, so to speak. They're not going to be afraid, because it is, for some of our people that are coming in from the reserve, they're still afraid to talk to white people. So when I bring in people like Bob Colbert or Liz Jarvis, and they need to feel comfortable around folks like that. And so it's getting those young people prepared for that. And so during the time, they know that they have to come in and start pitching themselves. So for that moment, they put the teaching of humility aside, and all they do for 2 minutes is talk about themselves as part of their introduction. Because as you know, when you're out there pitching people in the industry, you got to talk about yourself. People need to know who you are and what you've done. So that first week is getting them comfortable enough to talk about themselves. And then after that, they start talking about their ideas, and we quickly turn it into a potential pitch for a 5-minute story. And then from there, they pitch to a panel of broadcasters. And most of them come in with probably 1 to 2 years experience of the industry, whether it's working, in location or sound or, different areas of the business. And so they'll come in and they'll jump on each other's crews. There are only 3 successful pitches out of the 12. They'll work on each other's crew for that 5-minute story that has been selected by the panel of broadcasters. So at the end of their 3 months, they will be strong enough as individuals to go out there and pitch their own projects, work at a network, or move on to other larger films, but they'll be job ready.